people. No, I don't like it. I don't like it.
No, 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 please, please, no, no. Just please, I told you.
So you seeing this? Ёб твою.
我应该比较像是顾问在这里。
大家好, ¿cómo está? My name is Victor, and today's video we are going to talk about the new Laowa Argus T1 Cine lenses. Now this series is available on full frame, APS-C or Super 35, and Micro Four Thirds. So the intro is all shot on these two lenses, the 45mm and the 28mm. And we pretty much shot wide open with this shoot. And if you're wondering, oh, why did you guys shoot wide open? That's so amateur. Well, there's a Netflix movie called Army of the Dead, and it was directed by Zack Snyder, and he used a Canon 50mm at f/0.95 for the whole movie. That's right, for the whole movie. We shot at T1, well I did, but Michael shot at T2.8. Michael also has a really great YouTube channel, and shout out to Deep Flow Media as well for covering the BTS photos, BTS video, and shout out to Kaylee, the director of the shoot and the owner of the company. I should really get him into the channel. I should introduce everyone to you guys. Anyways, soon enough when I'm back in Taiwan, we'll do that. For a T1 lens, I feel like these are really light compared to other T1 lenses out there. The whole structure feels premium, the iris ring and the focus ring as well. It does feel weighted, but it perfectly balances out with the FX30. And the 28mm is the heaviest out of the three, which is at 1200 grams. And then the 45mm is just about 1000 grams. The issue with this one is that if you're holding the camera with this lens on, if you're using an A7S III or something mirrorless body type, or the FX3, FX30, what's going to happen is that your knuckles or your fingers are going to scrape on the iris ring. It actually touches it pretty hard, and that you are probably going to accidentally change the aperture while you're filming. But if you're using Cine lenses anyways, you're going to have your camera rigged up, so you're going to have a side handle or a top handle, and it won't be an issue. Especially since this is a manual lens, you're going to attach a follow focus on there. It'll only be an issue if you're not rigging up a mirrorless style camera body. The lenses have 15 aperture blades, so the bokeh is pretty smooth. It also has a 77mm filter thread. Currently, the Laowa Argus lenses are only offered in Sony E, Canon RF, and Nikon Z. The focus ring is dampened enough to my liking, and I like how the iris ring is more dampened than the focus ring. That means that if you lightly touch it while you're filming, you won't accidentally change your iris. Now, the focus throw of the full frame lenses are kind of odd because the 28 is at 211 degree focus throw, and the 35 and the 45 are the same at 270 degrees focus throw. I think for Cine lenses, the focus throw distance has to be consistent, but I also think it's because of the size and the construction of how they built it. They had to sacrifice the 28mm to have a different focus throw. With the rise of budget Cine lenses, this has always been an issue, especially for the super budget cinema lenses like the Nightwalkers or the 7 Artisans Cine lenses. But for the Laowa Argus, I only have two, which is the 28 and the 45mm on the full frame series. They are very close, but quite not the same. So with the color consistency test, I borrowed a color chart. Now we have a true gauge on what is consistent and what is not consistent. So I've shot these scenes with the same lighting, same exposure, same camera settings, almost same everything, just two different lenses. And if you look at the vector scope, you can see that there are dots on the greens, magentas, blues, and other different colors. This means that it's recognizing the little panels of the color checker. As you can see, there are two dots, sort of similar. That means that it's super close to matching, but not quite. This is where we find out that these two lenses don't match. I think, to be honest, it's very subtle. If we don't look at the vector scope at all, if we just look at the two images side by side, yes, you can see the difference if you really look at it, but if you're cutting this or you're color correcting anyways, it's an easy fix. And also, if you have a color chart, you can easily match these two. And then from there on, you can just make your own LUT. So every time you use these lenses on a shoot, you can just easily match them with that LUT or that power grade. And unfortunately, I do not have the 35mm to test out the consistency. So the minimum focus distance is actually quite decent on these lenses. Starting at 28mm, you have the minimum focus distance of 40 centimeters from the sensor. And with the 45mm, the minimum focus distance is 50 centimeters. On the Argus lenses, it's slightly noticeable, but it's not too distracting, especially if you slowly rack focus. Now with my testing, the 45mm is a bit worse. It's just one of those situations where you can use it for your creative advantage, or you just find a workaround on set or in post, or simply just avoid it. During the shoot anyways, and the scenes that we had, I didn't find it too distracting, and I actually did not notice it while I was editing the footage for the spec ad. Again, I find if you're slowly rack focusing, it won't be an issue. Now, chromatic aberration. This is where the character goes in. T1, yes, it's there, but I think it's actually pleasing because at T1, you're going to be using creative shots anyways, so count it in as a creative choice. Most likely, if you're filming a product shoot or an actual narrative, you're going to be shooting at T2.8, T4, T8, a deeper depth of field, especially if you have set design. But going back to the chromatic aberration, at T2 it gets better, and T4 it's practically gone. The performance at T1 is actually really good. If you look at the overall image, yes, it's soft because it's blurred out. The depth of field is like razor thin. But if we zoom in, especially I'm filming like this big of a product, the details you can see on that, whatever is focused on that razor thin depth of field. And I think it's actually quite sharp for T1. And also, if you start using T1 for narratives, for portraits, or for other professional work, it really shines. Now, like the chromatic aberration, at T2 it gets better, and then at T4 it's practically sharp all throughout. Okay, so for the bokeh, it's pleasing right in the center, and then closer to the edges, it becomes a cat's eye, which is okay. It's not really a big deal for me, but you decide if it's good for your work or not. All right, so let's move on to flaring. I love flaring. Don't get me wrong. It sometimes ruins a shot, but if I can sneak a flare in there, I would. With this flare test, I simply just pointed it at the cob light and tried to see where it would flare up. The flares on this one is beautiful at T1. It's quite skinny and it just looks like it's from a movie, but once it starts hitting one of the corners, one of the sides of the lenses, you can see this patch of flare that it's not really that pleasing. Again, you can use this as a creative choice if you want, but it's something to look out for. Now for the 45mm, you have the first beautiful flare, and then the second patch flare, and then the third is like circles, like when the light is hitting the lens closer to the edges, it has this big rings. And again, it's one of those situations where you can use this to your advantage or just completely avoid it. Now, let's talk about focal lengths. They only have 3 for the full frame version, which is the 28 and the 45, which I have, and the middle one is 35. Now, I actually got these lenses from their Hong Kong office. Yes, I visited them in Hong Kong, and that I've met the Laowa team that I was emailing back and forth. I finally put some faces to the names, and it was always great to work for them. I basically asked them where are the longer focal lengths and the wider focal lengths, because I think a 75mm or an 85mm would be great, and then maybe 100mm or something more telephoto would be best, and maybe a 16mm for the wider end, just to complete the set. But anyways, they said if the market is great on these T1 lenses, then they will start developing the other focal lengths. So hopefully these are good, because I like these lenses, and I hope that they complete the set with more focal lengths. Laowa told me that they're directly competing with the DZO Film Arles Cinelens series, and I also find that Zhongyi has a 50mm T1 Cinelens for full frame. So I think these two are kind of like the direct competitor. The Zhongyi one doesn't really have any focal lengths but the 50, but I think they are releasing new focal lengths. I don't know, I haven't really worked with them, so I'm not too sure. And then DZO Film are going to be releasing more focal lengths for the Arles Prime series. The minimum focus distance is quite great. The Zhongyi one at 65 centimeters on their 50, and then the DZO Film Arles 50mm is also 65 centimeters, so the Laowa is winning on the minimum focus distance. With the weight, let's just compare the 50mm. The Zhongyi 50mm is the heaviest among the two, and then the DZO Film Arles ranges from 1500 grams to 1800 grams. One thing that DZO Film got right with the Arles set is the consistency with the focus throws, given at 270-degree focus throw, while the Laowa's Argus 28mm is different from the 35 and the 45. Overall, very minor differences, but the Laowa wins on weight and I think also on the bang for your buck. Speaking of pricing, the Laowa Argus Cinelens set starts at $14.99 per lens, and if you want to grab the set, it's $3,999. Now the DZO Arles Prime starts at $21.49 per lens, which is quite hefty, and the Zhongyi 50mm T1 is only at $999. Overall, I really enjoyed the Argus Cinelens set from Laowa, and it's going to be my main Cinelens set for now. And I shoot a lot of products as well, and I'm going to be using these lenses for those. And I'm very excited because they are sharp at T4 and above. I just think the Laowa Argus Primes is the best bang for your buck, especially for this price range. And that wraps my review of the Laowa Argus Primes. If you have any questions about these lenses, feel free to comment down below. And my question is, would you grab the Argus Primes or would you grab a different lens set? Let me know, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
너와 나